Surprise! Thanks to our cool friends at Starbreeze, a few of us here at Rusty Chains got to spend this past weekend playing Payday 3. Most of us met each other through Payday, and it is the core of our friendship and our team. So to be invited to dive into it together was a special experience. And dive into it we did! Speaking personally, I logged a lot of time. There was so much to talk about, so we're going to have to try to do it in as sensible of an order as possible, but we're going to have to break this down a whole lot. First things first, we weren't able to record our own footage of this. It's a press build with some UI things that aren't final, so Starbreeze asked that we use footage they provide instead. With that being the case, since a lot of other people are probably dropping their Payday 3 videos at the exact same time, you'll notice a lot of similar gameplay. So we sat down in a fancy little Discord chat with some of the other partners, as well as Elizabeth, who is Starbreeze community manager, and Nico, who is the lead game director on Payday 3. We're going to go into detail on just about every point they talked about throughout this video, but I wanted to mention these few numbered bits they talked about. Starbreeze is contracted for a minimum of 18 months of DLC for Payday 3. That means even after the first year of content that they've already announced is concluded, we still have 6 more months coming. And they said they designed skill trees, in particular, with the intention to make more and possibly future-proof them a bit. Next up, the game launches on Unreal 4, but within this first year, will jump to Unreal 5. Heists are designed with the intent to take 15 to 20 minutes on average, and there are 8 heists at launch. More on that later. A lot more on that later. The game uses dedicated servers, which does mean a little matchmaking time to load into a heist, but you'll have a better and more synchronized experience once you get in. So with all that said, let's now start breaking this down into the sections, which are conveniently labeled as YouTube chapters that you can click down below. There are 6 heisters in Payday 3. In the build of the game we played, the original 4 of Dallas, Hoxton, Wolf, and Chains were available. The heister prioritization system from Payday 2 returns with the exact same functionality, which was awesome to see. One of the in-game outfit selections is another heister's original outfit from Payday 2. It is titled as such, and their signature weapon is also in the base game for Payday 3. So we believe we know who the 5th heister is based on that, but they never confirmed it for us. The returning heisters all have new outfits, which look great. Dallas has a long coat added to his Payday 2 outfit, enhancing his drip. Hoxton is back in blue, also with a long coat. Wolf has the long coat with cool, devices along his arms, as well as zip ties on his sleeves. It helps to build his identity as, this crazy mechanic. Chains has rolled his sleeves, put on a bubble vest, and become significantly more buff. This dude is lifting. He's living his best life. But now, beyond their outfits are their faces. All 4 have new appearances. Dallas and Chains both look fairly similar to their appearance in Payday 2. Hoxton and Wolf, however, look completely different. And that brings us to the wolf-shaped elephant in the room. Dallas, Hox, and Chains all retain their voices from Payday 2, with entirely new voice lines and no returning ones, which is great. Wolf does not, on account of Ulf Anderson's leaving and his dislike for Starbreeze. He has been recast for Payday 3 and is played by Nicholas Berglund. Starbreeze was a bit worried about him going into this. Wolf is a fan favorite, and people may not react too well to the recast, which is a big part of why nothing was done in Payday 2, according to then-director Jules. Berglund was a pleasant surprise. He very well captures the unhinged excitement that Wolf is known for. He sounds very similar to Ulf for most of his line deliveries as well. There were a few lines that sounded almost like Ulf had spoken them himself. He's not a perfect impersonator, but he's close enough for fans to be able to recognize him as the same character. A worthy successor to the role. Interestingly, the gang is not overseen by Bane or even by Locke in Payday 3. They've a new handler, a woman named Shade. We weren't told much about her and didn't hear much about her in this build. All I know is she talks fast, sometimes shouts a bit more, and yells a bit more. It seems like she's more stressed than the previous handlers were. I'm kind of interested in this take. Bane was a former heister who then guided the Payday gang, so it's cool to see the 12-year veteran gang with a seemingly less experienced contractor behind the wheel. What Heisters can and can't do in Payday 3 is greatly expanded. Even without skills or upgrades, the base character is significantly stronger. For example, Heisters can slide along the ground or mantle over waist-high ledges. The Heisters have all been working out and can sprint with any bag. Casing mode, when you're pre-mask, has been heavily expanded. You can now mark NPCs or cameras, crouch, sprint, pickpocket guards, pick locks, and interact with things in the world, all without masking up. You can also take hostages much easier with an unlimited number of cable ties. You can take hostages as human shields, and if you manage to grab a guard or a cop, you can actually perform a brutal takedown where you snap their neck and carry them off. You can move all the bodies you want in stealth because body bags no longer exists. You just scoop and go. Of course, builds return in Payday 3, so there's all the ways you can enhance yourself even further. You can swap between your loadouts just as you did in Payday 2. But progression is a bit different in the new game than you might expect. Like a lot of things, this is a fusion of Payday 2 and Payday the Heist. It's kind of complicated with multiple ongoing levels to change how your character works, so stick with me here. Payday 3 has a lot of different things that you equip in your builds for gameplay. Skills, deployables, equipment gadgets, and throwables. You unlock these by leveling up your infamy rank. Now don't panic, Payday 2 players. In the last game, infamy was your prestige level, but in Payday 3, it's just your main character level. You raise your infamy not through experience, but by completing challenges during heists. See, that right there is the Payday the Heist DNA getting infused. Challenges are very simple early on though. There's a little over 1,000 challenges in Payday 3. At the beginning, you'll find yourselves completing anywhere from 40 to 70 a heist. You'll need to work harder and focus on specific challenges at about level 70, but that's also the level where you have your maximum skill points. That isn't the max level though. You can get your infamy up to level 150, and you unlock masks, guns, equipment, and outfits all the way up. Then you have your skills. That is where the XP goes. There are 16 skill trees. Yeah, 16. It's a lot. Each tree has a starting skill, 3 to 5 smaller skills after that, and a final skill. When you start the game, they are all locked. You tag a starting skill in a tree as your research skill, and then XP you earn during a heist is used to research it. Once the research is complete, you can equip the starting skill and begin researching a new tree. Having a skill equipped automatically puts EXP into both your current research and towards unlocking the next skill in the tree the equipped skill is from. You use the skill points to equip a skill, and you can put a secondary point into the starting skill from each tree to ace it for upgraded secondary effects. Skills are generally a lot more powerful in Payday 3, so there are two major drawbacks. Firstly, you need to equip the starting skill in a tree to equip another from that tree, but you don't need to go in order of the unlocked skills. So you can have the starting skill and then just the fourth skill in that tree if you wanted. The second drawback is that around infamy level 70, you'll have the maximum amount of skill points. Just 21. Skills in Payday 3 still synergize well with each other, but that means your ability to experiment is a bit more limited with the limited skill points. When I say skills are significantly more powerful, I mean things like you're imperceptible to guards or cameras while sprinting, or upgrading your ammo bags from 2 charges to 8, or answering pagers from a distance. You've got way less skills to get and to equip, but the ones you have will make you so much stronger. Now finally is gun progression. When you reach a requisite infamy level to buy a gun, you cannot mod that gun right away. You need to use a gun to raise that gun's level, which then unlocks more and more mods as it levels up. The neat thing though, is that if you buy a second copy of a gun, it retains its progress. So if I have a level 10 Car 4 and buy a second one, my new Car 4 starts at level 10 as well. You also have a suppressor as an available option for the default SIG 40 pistol, so you can stealth right away. So to break this down and summarize it as simply as we possibly can, You complete challenges to level up your infamy, which grants skill points and unlocks guns or equipment. You can use XP to research and unlock skills, which you use your skill points from infamy to equip. And then you use guns to boost the rating of the gun and unlock the mods for that gun. There are 4 main deployables in Payday 3. The ammo bag. By default, it has 2 charges, but now with skills can carry up to 8. Each charge restores a decent amount of ammo. Overall, it functions very similarly to how it does in Payday 2. Next up, the medic bag returns, but it's been shaken up quite a bit. It no longer refills your down counter unless you max out the medic skill tree, and even then, it only does by 1 down. It instead contains 2 to 6 first aid kits, depending on your upgrades, which each restore a small chunk of health. Sentry turrets are back, but are a bit different. They don't take from your ammo pool as a deployment cost. They also never die or run out of ammo. If a sentry takes too much damage, it stops shooting, or if it shoots for too long, it overheats. The remedy to this is to simply pick them back up and place them down again, completely reset and ready to go. Upgrades allow your turret to spin all the way around, you can place a second one, or have them blow up as secret bombs when their health runs out. Those ones you can't pick back up. Now the final deployable is going to throw some people for a loop. It's the armor bag. It works completely differently from Payday 2 because the armor system now works completely differently from the other games in the trilogy. In the previous games, if you avoid taking damage for a short time, your armor would regenerate to full, allowing you to get back into the fight the same way. In Payday 3, however, you only regen a portion of the damage from each hit. That means each hit takes a little bit of damage that you're not getting back. As you level your infamy, you can get better ballistic vests to trade a bit more move speed for more armor, but that doesn't change the regen rules. Once your armor gets low, you'll want to find yourself an armor bag to replace your damaged plate and refill your bar. It'll be your best friend before long. The armor bag starts with 2 plates, but with upgrades can carry as many as 8. Once you've selected your heister and your skills, it's time to square up and choose some guns. For launch, Payday 3 has 17 guns available to heisters, 11 primary and 6 secondary. The guns are broken down as follows. You've got 4 assault rifles, 2 shotguns, 2 sniper rifles, and 3 SMGs. Those are the primary weapons, with the other 6 being 4 pistols and 2 revolvers in the secondary slot. It's worth picking a secondary you know you can rely on, because you can use them while carrying a human shield, and you'll want something to fall back on. Now, 17 guns is not a lot, so to compensate there are what are called preset weapons. In Payday 3, you can trade your in-game spending cash for C-stacks, which are canonically CrimeNet's cryptocurrency. That line took so many tries to get right. Anyway, you can then spend the C-stacks to buy certain preset weapons, or buy other preset weapons for a massively inflated spending price. What's interesting about the C-stack method is you can get these weapons much earlier through presets. For example, the Uzi unlocked at level 27 in this build of Payday 3. But I was able to generate enough C-stacks to purchase the preset version by level 15. See, preset weapons are new versions of existing weapons, but with a unique paint job and specific mod set meant to gear towards a specific playstyle. Your best point of comparison to this is the exclusive sets in Payday 2. The tricky thing about modding and preparing weapons in this build is that they actually forgot a lesson they learned very early on in Payday 2. See, Payday 2 initially didn't show stats. It was just little bars that slide up or down with equipment changes. And Payday 3 brought that back. We don't have any hard numbers, just a little line graph. It's hard, we don't know what we're cooking. I do have to say though, actually shooting guns in Payday 3 feels great. The sound design is incredible. All the guns kick, they feel smooth, there's plenty of feedback. Finally, after all these years, all the police have full head-to-toe hitboxes, and react differently depending on where you shoot them. Hit their knees, they fall down. Hit their arm, they lose their grip on their gun and need to readjust. If you shoot them in the glass on their visor, It will progressively crack more with each bullet before shattering with glass everywhere in glorious Payday the Heist fashion. The environment is also incredible during shootouts. All bullet holes and damage to the world around you is permanent for the heist. Before long, they look like war zones if you're playing in loud. Car alarms blaring as stray shots catch a windshield, or trucks sinking because their tires got shot and lost some air. It's the most real and visceral Payday has ever felt. We love to see such great dynamic damage in real time. Now, believe it or not, that actually isn't it for your weapons in Payday 3. There's a third weapon slot. The overkill weapon. Your current two choices there are the returning piglet grenade launcher or an anti-material rifle. The trick is you don't have the overkill weapons all the time. Killing a high amount of police during the heist will fill your overkill meter. This allows you to send Bile a text and he'll airdrop a case with your overkill weapon, kind of like a Call of Duty kill streak. If you feel like sharing, any heister in the crew can pick up anybody else's overkill weapon. Once you pick it up, it has a very limited amount of ammo, and is discarded when you run out. It's also dropped if you go down or swap weapons, but it can simply be picked up again from the floor if it has ammo left. The funniest thing about overkill weapons is that the kills you get with them count towards the meter for your next overkill call-in. The drawbacks to them, though, is that the case they drop in doesn't actually come down right away, and when it does come down, it has to be in an outdoor area. This makes it particularly hazardous to go out and get in largely indoor heists, like the art gallery or in the middle of a parking lot on the bank job. Payday 3 also has 4 throwables available at your disposal. A frag grenade to make enemies go boom, a flashbang, which stuns enemies except for bulldozers and allows you to take non-special units as human shields when they're stunned, a smoke bomb, which slows enemies and decreases their accuracy when they're in the smoke. My personal favorite, the throwing knives from Payday 2 return. Now by default they break if you miss your target and they hit the environment. However, they have a whole skill tree dedicated to them. They can become unbreakable, and even start to ricochet around the environment to fly into cops. I adore it. You can also be significantly more liberal with throwables in this game, as every refresh from an ammo bag gives 1 back to you, and with skills you can restore all your throwables with a trip to the ammo bag. We are almost done with the inventory segment, I promise, but there's still one last thing to cover. Equipment. Those are a second, smaller gadget that you keep on your heister, which they then control with a smartphone. They can be placed and operated in casing mode, so they're great help for stealth or even just to set the stage before you go loud. By default, you start with 2 magnetic cameras, which you can then view the feed from on your phone. These can stick to anything you can get close enough to place them on, including people. A favorite technique for a lot of us in the preview build was to swipe a guard's keycard lanyard as he walks by, only to then slip a micro camera into his pocket instead. Just like that, the poor bastard has become a roaming surveillance drone for the very robbers he's here to stop. The second gadget you unlock is a concussive sound mine. Similar to all other gadgets, they can just stick to wherever you can place them. You have 5 of these. Once you place them, if you activate them, they fire off a small sound wave in the area, temporarily stunning law enforcers or civilians in range. If you place multiple before activating them, they all go off together. The third one is the ECM jammer, back from Payday 2. Now you've got your ECM and another full deployable, which is kinda wild to think about. Unlike Payday 2, this jammer does not turn off cameras or radios. It significantly slows them down when you activate the jammer, and that slow actually stacks with every other active jammer on the map. The final gadget is a motion detector. Once you place it and activate it, it marks up to 15 enemies or civilians within a 3-meter radius. Handy for tracking crowds in stealth, or for knowing where to anticipate a big wave of enemies coming in loud. Okay. With all the inventory stuff out of the way, we are finally ready to start talking about heists. There were 2 in the build we played, out of the 8 we were told to expect at launch. The maps are bigger. Both of the ones we played were bigger than a fair amount of Payday 2 heists, and we were told that these were the smallest ones in Payday 3. That said, in the intro presentation, they mentioned that they are working with the philosophy that heists should take about 15-20 minutes to complete. That means if you aren't replaying them, you can complete every heist in the game in just over 2 hours at launch. Obviously, most people will replay the heist, but that still isn't much content. Speaking personally, it was basically the only big thing in this weekend preview that made the RC gang go, uh-oh. Now that we've discussed the harsh reality of numbers, let's discuss the phases of the heist. First, you choose your difficulty. Now, gone are the days of Payday 2's 7 difficulties. Payday 3 has the 4 classic ones: normal, hard, very hard, and overkill. Combat is a challenge even on normal, so be cautious. Rather than being a simple numbers game for the police like in Payday 2 though, the difficulty more so affects the rules of the world. For example, when doing the bank heist loud on normal, you need to lower 2 sets of ballers for your escape, but then lower 3 sets on hard or 4 on overkill. Each difficulty over normal also adds a new modifier. Hard and above brings back the indestructible Titan security cameras. This is especially dangerous as all the security cameras in Payday 3 actually do pivot and rotate. Hard difficulty also introduces the FBI van, with its chance to spawn increasing with each subsequent difficulty. Now the FBI van isn't the turret, don't freak out, it's a surveillance van. It broadcasts your position and keeps you locked in a more aggressive FBI assault until you find the van and shoot the satellite dish off the roof. Think of it as a less dangerous Captain Winters. Very Hard introduces the Cerberus Core modifier. In Payday 3, you can use abilities called runtimes to hack electronics in the world and flip them to your side. However, on Very Hard and Overkill, where the Cerberus Core is activated, runtimes reset and are stopped after only 5 seconds. Finally, Overkill reduces you to 2 pagers in stealth, and also introduces the lead guard. He's always in search mode, more on that in a minute, and if you kill him, they will continuously ring his pager, meaning your heist is functioning on a time limit for stealth. Next up is the pre-planning phase in the lobby. It is very reduced compared to Payday 2. You buy a favor card in the weapon shop before selecting a heist, and each player can add 1 during the pre-planning phase. These replace the assets from Payday 2. The cards in the shop are standard. You can buy 1 of each deployable or unique bag to set up a zipline and unlock a new vantage point. Whichever card you bring, the corresponding item is dropped on a random spot on the map. Functionally, it's less like pre-planning and more asking for a specific item to appear somewhere. If you vote to restart the heist, the card is not consumed and just activates again. However, if you win a heist or fail and go back to lobby, your favorite card is consumed. You can also find special favorite cards as heist rewards that tie into a specific thing on a heist. For example, after completing the Under the Surface Gallery heist, we got a special favor card for the No Rest for the Wicked bank heist. The special favor made our driver more courageous on the bank heist for the next run, so he didn't speed out when the alarm sounded to return later. Once you get into the game, you start unmasked, usually surrounded by civilians. We were pleasantly surprised that NPCs in this game have full facial animations, and civs even stumble and comment on your rudeness if you bump into them walking down the street in casing mode. It really does help the world feel more alive. In this unmasked phase, and until the alarm rings, at the top of the screen you'll see text informing you which of 3 zone types you're in. You usually start in public spaces. For the most part, nobody will notice or bother what you do here if your mask is off, unless you run right into a guard or start committing a crime. Usually after that you'll find yourself in private spaces. If a guard or camera detects you with your mask on, that's an instant alarm. However, if you are seen here while in casing mode, they will just send a guard to you. He won't attack, he'll just ask you to leave the property, and a radius will be displayed around him. If you stay in that, he'll escort you off the property without sounding the alarm. This is a perfect time to choke out or pickpocket a guard if need be. However, if he sees you committing a crime like lockpicking, he will sound the alarm even with your mask off. A neat Payday 3 stealth tip that we want to mention here is that you actually don't instantly get an alarm if a pager is not answered. You still have 4 pagers before the alarm is sounded, but failing to answer a pager is just a penalty that counts as 2 pagers instead. Granted, on overkill difficulty when you only have 2 pagers total, this isn't really a viable option. Let's also discuss the search mode we mentioned earlier, since this is usually the part of a heist where it becomes relevant. If a guard finds evidence of a crime, they will enter search mode where they look around, actively trying to find a heister. This is when they'll also sound an alarm or try to arrest you if they spot you. The final zone type is secure spaces. This is a no-tolerance zone where you will instantly be cuffed by a guard who sees you in casing mode, or he'll radio for an alarm right away if you have a mask on. Next, we need to prepare for what happens when the alarm rings, whether you want it to or not. In the previous games, this would be a warm-up phase before the cops hit you hard. Here, this is what's called the negotiation phase. If you are so inclined, you can trade a hostage during the negotiation phase to buy yourself some extra time. You can keep repeating this if you have the bodies to spare. First trade is 1 hostage, next is 3, then 5, then 7, so on and so forth. Each trade buys you an additional 30 seconds of time before the first assault hits. If you're not on board with the negotiating phase and want to skip it, you can just walk outside and shoot a first responder, and then they'll rush you. Between assaults, if you have any hostages left, you can offer them to the police again. It won't buy you any more time, but will instead have the cops drop a first aid kit for you where the hostage was. We highly recommend you save a few hostages to take advantage of it, especially because combat is no joke. Take health damage if you're late into a heist, because after a certain amount of time passes, the assault is replaced by the final charge phase, which is basically an infinite assault. Thankfully, getting out of custody is easier and can even happen during assaults. Gone are the days of trading to get players back. You're released after a set timer as long as there's a living player in the heist. AI teammates are always released after 30 seconds. But what actually happens during an assault? Well, you do everything you can to minimize the pain. But it still hurts. Believe me, it still hurts. Gone are the days of Payday Heisters being completely unchecked gods of destruction. You are now just people in a firefight. Even if you're on normal difficulty, if you are not waiting and ready, you will get messed up. Payday 3 has much better objective variety. You're very rarely just standing around and waiting anymore. If you're picking a lock, you're doing a Dead by Daylight style skill check to speed it up. If you need to get into a safe, you're doing a safe cracking minigame instead of drilling it. If you come across a sealed window, you need to trace a line with your glass cutter to get in silently. All of these things are great ways to feel more immersed and more engaged in a heist, but they all demand your attention. If you didn't use the time between your assaults to set up, or you don't have somebody watching your back, the cops will rush you while they do this, and they will ruin you. And that's not even getting started on police tactics. For years, the Payday community has been asking for police to be smarter and not just rush at the Payday gang. Starbreeze really goddamn listened to that one for Payday 3. The cops have a whole playbook and they make the calls on the fly. If you're in a tight area for too long, you'll hear the cops call out to close in and keep them in the kill box, and then they'll reposition to block exits to that area. You can and will hear them talk to each other and plan out how to reposition to best benefit special units coming in. The cops in Payday 3 are not mindless drones anymore. They have purposes, and they have plans, and they follow through. As a result, new unit types have been introduced or are reintroduced. Sometimes you'll hear Shade mention the hostage rescue team. This means there's a special team of 3 cops in white suits that just spawned in, and they will try to avoid you to go get your hostages and let them go. Thankfully, the game now highlights civilians that are being rescued, but if you don't stop the rescue, those civs are gone for good and can't be retied. Shade will also warn of a special sabotage squad. This is another team of 3, this time dressed in black and gold. They'll skirt around the edges of the main fight to make your life hell when it comes to pushing objectives. What the sabotage squad does is, well, they sabotage your goals. Are you using thermite to burn into a bank vault? They'll sneak around you and activate the sprinkler system to put out the fire. Trying to secure some mission critical bags? Oh, whoops, you can see the highlighted outline of the sabotage unit and your bag scuttling away out of the corner of your eye. I love all of this. In Payday 2, once you got good, you could shut your brain off and play the game on autopilot for the most part, unless you lived on one of the 2 highest difficulties. In this game, it feels like you're juggling your defenses, objectives, and keeping the cops at bay while adapting to what they throw at you. It really feels like both sides are fighting for control of the situation, and reacting to each other's moves as you drain each other's resources the longer the heist goes on. It keeps you on your toes and your head on a swivel. It's fantastic. Once you do finally make it to the escape, there's now a tracker showing you how many heisters are in the escape zone. Once everybody makes it, this triggers a 3-second timer before the actual escape takes place and you win. Leaving the zone cancels the timer, so you need everybody to commit for a few seconds when you're leaving. Now, of course, we only talked about the normal cops. They're still the special units. And new or old, each unit has a whole bag of tricks you need to counter, rather than filling one specific role like in the previous games. It's great. As a result of specials being stronger, they are significantly fewer in presence than in Payday 2, and Shade will call them out as they spawn, much like in Payday the Heist. First, let's talk about the specials from Payday 2 that didn't make the cut to return to Payday 3. Martial shields and snipers are gone, as are medics. We are gathered here today to mourn the loss of the goodest boy. But you know what we won't miss? The motherfucking SWAT turrets! Woo! Yeah, they're gone, and I am pleased about it. So anyway, shields are back. Unlike in Payday 2, they aren't total wastes of space. When they arrive, they'll call out tactical cover, and nearby units will fall in line behind the shield to use it as cover. This makes it harder to get close and flank the shields. That's made even more difficult by the fact that the shields will punch you in the face if you try. And I do mean, like, actually directly in the face. They stagger your vision and knock the gun out of your line of fire for a second. Your best chance to stop these shields is a throwable, or an overkill weapon you might have on hand. Or, you can focus its visor. See, the shields now have a glass visor in the shield itself. Enough concentrated fire will shatter that glass visor. The shield carrier will call this out to the other cops, who then fan out. You can now shoot through that little visor to take the shield down at eye level. Of course, the risk to this is standing in a dangerous firing line to take the shots at the thing. Next up, tasers are back, and they are not called tasers anymore. They are now referred to as zappers. Primarily, they will fire their stun gun to tase a heister and hold them in place, like Payday 2. However, you can now shoot the battery pack on their hips. This causes an electrical discharge from the pack that shocks the zapper and nearby cops. It'll also stun you if you don't have a specific skill to prevent it. This won't kill the zapper. Zappers also have a tendency to slip away and drop little shock mines in areas you walk through a lot. These mines, if stepped on, will trigger a similar discharge that shocks you. They can be shot from afar to detonate them at a distance, which also does shock the police. Cloakers are back, and more agile than ever. They've remembered how to parkour from Payday the Heist. If they're charging you and you line up a shot on their head, they'll slide. If you aim low, they'll jump up and do a wall run or spring off a wall to land on you. Of course, they'll still hide and wait in place to pounce for a while. If they get impatient, they'll leave their little hiding spot and hunt down deployables you've placed. When the cloaker finds the deployable, they'll dump acid on it if you're not there to stop them. Next time you interact with that deployable, you will inhale the acid fumes and it will mess up your vision and your hearing for a few seconds. The cloaker employs chemical warfare in the year of our Lord 2023. This isn't a joke, that's just a thing that happens in Payday 3. Now, should a cloaker actually hit you, it isn't a direct down this time. They just put you on the floor and beat you, slowly whittling away your health. If your health hits 0 from the beating, then it becomes a down. If the cloaker is shot and killed before your health hits 0, you just spring back up without even needing a revive. Lastly, the cloaker has a unique voice line where he starts crying if you flashbang him a few times, and that's very funny. Snipers return and function basically the same as they do in Payday 2. They post up on a predetermined high location, aim at you with their big ol' laser pointer, and then pull the trigger. They are a huge threat in this game though. They're a bit further away on average, and as a result harder to shoot. They also completely shred through armor, and remember, in Payday 3 armor is a limited resource, so taking them out quickly should be a top priority. There's a new special enemy, called the Nader. like Grenader. This has been requested for a long time. He throws flashbangs, which are no longer a blinding white screen, but a more tolerable vision distortion. He also throws smoke bombs, which function similar to our own. We're slowed down and we can't see when we're in there. Lastly, he throws tear gas. This slows you down a bit too, and damages your health over time while you're in the gas, but ignores your armor. He keeps all his grenades on a belt on his torso, which you can shoot to make him explode. He hangs at the back of police crowds, so it's a little harder to get a line of sight on him, but if you can get that shot on him, he's done for. This is probably for the best, since he's genuinely a psycho and whispers disturbing things about tear gas all the time. Dude is unwell. Lastly is the Bulldozer. The Bulldozer. He now has a huge drum mag on his shotgun and is bigger than ever before. He hits like a truck. A single bulldozer wiped out our entire team on multiple occasions. You can still chip away the layers of his head armor, and now his torso armor as well, but he has so much health that it's still a fight to the end. With his high explosive resistance, you'll want at least one person on your team to pack an overkill anti-material rifle. Thankfully, taking a lot of damage forces him to taunt like a fighting game character. This is usually followed by his devastating shoulder charge move, which can stun you and knock you back though. There is no bigger threat than a bulldozer in Payday 3. When Shade calls him out, the entire heist comes to a stop. It is no longer about objectives. It is about getting the crew together, back to back, and finding him before he can ambush you. From that point, there are 3 options when he shows up. Number 1, run. Number 2, call down your overkill weapons as fast as you can and hope you can get them ready before he gets to you. Number 3, have everybody unload everything they have on him and just hope for the best. So that covers all the systems we found in Payday 3 and our thoughts on them. I think we sprinkled some opinions in there well enough. But I think Starbreeze really managed to combine the best elements of Payday the Heist and Payday 2 to find a perfect middle ground. The new build system, though smaller, still offers many more unique ways to synergize a build. If you can get past the smaller amount of content at launch, Starbreeze has put together a game that any Payday fan is really going to love playing. Thanks for sitting through all of this, and what do you think about all this? And if you have any questions, feel free to ask them below. Until next time, don't forget to spread that happy and stay rusty.